The reading, if you've got a Bible, I'm reading from the ESV, and it's Luke chapter 10, verses 38 to 42, and it's the well-known story of Martha and Mary. But even though it's well known, let's really listen to what God is going to say to us through this scripture. Now, as they went on their way, Jesus entered a village, and a woman named Martha welcomed him into her house. And she had a sister called Mary, who sat at the Lord's feet and listened to his teaching. But Martha was distracted with much serving. And she went up to him and said, "Lord, do you not care that my sister has left me to serve alone? Tell her then to help me." But the Lord answered her, "Martha, Martha, you are anxious and troubled about many things, but one thing is necessary. Mary has chosen the good portion, which shall not be taken away from her." Amen.
Thanks so much, Pat, for reading. I love hearing Pat read. I don't know, it feels like you're right there in the room with Mary and Martha and Jesus, doesn't it? Thank you so much for taking us there. Excuse me while I sort myself out. Okay, I think I'm there. Hi. Good to see loads of faces I don't recognise this morning. And so you won't know who I am either. My name's Keith. I'm part of the preaching team here. In fact, the first time I preached here was in the height of the first COVID lockdown. Did it online. And I preached on the story of Mary and Martha. Of course, you'll remember that like it was yesterday. So I could quite easily just do the same thing again, but I'm not going to. In fact, I'm not really preaching from this passage at all. I just wanted it to form like a backdrop to what we are thinking about this morning. Okay, so just keep the picture of Jesus, Mary and Martha in your mind as I waffle on. We've been on this great journey this term, looking at how we can deepen our relationship with Jesus by abiding in him. He calls us to abide in him and so to produce fruit in our lives. It's been wonderful. I mean, I've found it so helpful, so challenging. We've looked at how we can abide through our prayers, through scriptural meditation, through worship, through silence and solitude. And I hope your hearts have been stirred. But I wonder if at times maybe you felt, that's great, I would love to do more of that, but I just don't have the time. How am I going to find the time to spend half an hour just reading and meditating on a scripture passage? How am I going to do that? I'm so busy, work, kids, whatever. Yeah, I get that. I do understand that. And, well, the solution's quite simple. You just do everything faster. Hang on. Okay. What? Sorry, wrong script. This morning, we're going to be thinking how we can abide through slowing, which seems to be totally counter-cultural. It goes against everything that our society is telling us. We need to go faster. We need express this. We need high speed that. We need next day delivery. No, same day. No, we need delivery yesterday. Everything's got to be faster. And here am I saying, we're going to see how we can abide, deepen our relationship with Jesus by slowing down. Ooh. That's a tough call, isn't it? I think we need to pray. Let's pray. Our Father, we thank you for the time that we've already spent in your presence this morning. We thank you that we've been able to spend time just looking at you and giving our praise to you and just feeling your heart for us. We thank you for that, Lord. But we also thank you for all the kind of flurry of activity that's happened around this place this morning, the setup team, the welcome team, the tech team, the kids team. So many people, Lord, that we're so grateful for who have got that Martha heart to serve. We thank you for that because we couldn't do what we're doing now without that. But Lord, right now, just help us. Just give us a Mary heart. Just help us to sit at your feet and listen to you. Will you do that, Lord, for us? And will you bless us as we just focus on you? Amen. Another thing that may have crossed your mind as you see me here talking about slowing down, you may well, and you could be forgiven for thinking, well, it's all right for you. It's all right for you, Keith. You take an early retirement, all kids grown up, left home, all established, independent, married, they're all okay, living in a kind of fairly low maintenance house and a low maintenance, everything's just fine. And I agree with you. Yes, it's all right for me. And I'm so grateful to God for that, because I tell you, it hasn't always been. I've been on a bit of a journey, and this morning's going to be a bit unusual for me, because I'm going to be dipping into bits of that journey and just show you how I've had various twists and turns, and some of those have not been wanted, have not been welcome, certainly not been planned, but God has worked through it to bring me to a place where I can, with a smile on my face, say, yeah, we can slow down and know more of Jesus through slowing down. So I'm out of my comfort zone, okay? I don't like talking about myself in public like this, but I'm going to dip into bits of my story at various times. Also, the difficult thing is it doesn't make me look good, okay? So cast aside all your preconceptions that I'm this wonderful guy, because I'm not going to look good through this. My wife is going to look good, but she won't want me to say that because she'll be embarrassed, so I won't say it, okay? Scrub that from the recording if you could. More importantly, Jesus is going to look good, okay? And that's what I want. My journey. Let's do the first bit. The journey's been about over the last 40 years. I know most of you haven't been alive that long. 40 years ago, left university, started work in the telecoms industry. It was a boom business at the time. Great place to work, great opportunities. And I got totally, completely consumed by it. If we kind of take a quick snapshot about 30 years ago, I was working for a little company by the name of IBM. It was exciting times. They were really pushing into new areas, and I was part of that, and it was great. We'd just moved house. We'd moved from Essex into Kent, into northwest Kent. Very handy because it put me within striking distance of London and easy access to the M25, which was great because I was travelling around all over the place. Felt really important. Travelling in the UK, travelling overseas, and it was all happening. We had moved with a new baby, our first child. We had taken on a mortgage that we couldn't really afford, but hey, I was in a boom industry and everything was great. And we were living in a quite pleasant little village, just really conveniently located, all good. Took on a lot of responsibility in the local church. So within the next few years, I ended up being on the leadership team and then responsible for the work among the teenagers, and then on an outreach team, and then this and then that, and preaching often and leading a small group often, and all kinds of stuff. Life was busy. If you had asked me what's important in your life, I would have said, oh, God first. Then my family. Then my church stuff, and then work. If you had looked at my life, you would have seen a complete 180-degree reversal of that. Work was dominating everything. I would dash home from work after a long day away somewhere, dash in. Kids had already gone to bed because I was late. Bolt down a quick meal and then straight off to a meeting at church or something else I was doing. The kids, oh, by the way, by this stage I've had another child, I think. Yeah. I had a daughter in 1992. During this period, I have to say, I didn't know my family. They knew me as this grumpy bloke that was around at weekends, irritable, impatient, just not a pleasant person, really. Denise just got the worst bit of me at the end of each day, and first thing in the morning as I was dashing to go out. It was not pretty. And I knew that it wasn't the right way round of things. I knew that, but could I get out of it? No. I was in full-on Martha mode. Busy, 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 busy. And like Martha, I did eventually get round to praying. But like Martha, my prayer was basically, Lord, don't you care? You need to do something about this because I'm in a mess. He did. Two things happened in 1994. One of them wasn't at all welcome, but it turned out to be the answer to the prayer. The other one looked great, but it turned out very much not to be the answer to the prayer. Tune in later for the next episode. Back in the 1950s, a couple of cardiologists, heart surgeon type people, realised that more and more of their patients were suffering a condition that was nothing to do with their heart, really. They termed it hurry sickness. It's not really a medical condition at all, but they identified this thing and they said this is the definition, a continuous struggle and unremitting attempt to accomplish or achieve more and more things or participate in more and more events in less and less time. That was me. Probably some of you recognise yourself in that as well. Trying to do more and more things in less and less time. You know how it is, you're juggling several tasks at a time, multitasking, oh yeah, to the point of forgetting what you're supposed to be doing because you've got so many other things that you're doing. Always behind schedule, always running late. Quick, need to dash. Overwhelming, persistent sense of urgency, even when actually you don't really need to be moving that fast, but you got to, because that's the pace you're living at. Annoyed by anything that threatens to slow you down, especially if that's in the form of your own children, your own family, the ones closest to you. You been there? You come to a line of cars on the motorway. Everything's slowed down. Is that lane moving faster? Yeah, let's try that. Oh no, that one, quick, go back. Yeah. You're queuing up at a supermarket, looking at the trolleys. How much in that trolley? They're going to take a while. Let's try this queue. You been there? On your on the practice sheet this week, there's a little questionnaire thing, a little self-assessment on how you're doing on hurry sickness. It's quite interesting, really. 10 little indicators. I looked at it through the eyes of the 1990 version of me, and I scored an absolute stonking 10 out of 10. It's not good. One of the things I like to do now in my new slow pace of life is occasionally have a little amble along the seafront. And This little section between Swellcliffe and Tankerton, where quite often you see windsurfers and kite surfers out on the sea. I quite like to watch them, just sort of sit and watch them for a bit. Truth is, I would have quite fancied having a go at that one day, at one stage in my life. It wouldn't look good now, but yeah, it would have been quite good in my young, fit days. But you know, so I didn't have time. I was too busy, so I never did. But I like to watch them. And what I've noticed is that some of these kite surfers now, that the boards have like a hydrofoil fitted underneath. And as the wind gets their speed up, the board lifts up out of the water. So it's no longer sort of floating on the water and you're sort of gently being carried along by the wind and the waves. But no, you're skimming along on the top. Some of us live our lives like that, don't we? We're not really in our lives. We're like skimming across the surface, not really engaging with what's happening around you. That is hurry sickness. That was me. So, the question that I put to you now is, do you want to really abide with Jesus? To abide in Jesus? Do you want to spend time with him? Do you want to bear fruit in your lives? We need to slow down. We can't do it if we're skimming along on the surface. So we're going to look at slowing. We're going to look, in common with other talks in this series, we're going to look at what is slowing. What does it mean? Why do we need to slow? And please, Keith, tell us, how do we do it? Okay, what is it? What do we mean when we talk about slowing? Well, in the context of abiding with Jesus, it has to be that we're living life at Jesus' pace. Have you noticed as you go through the Gospels, Jesus never seemed to be in a hurry. He always had time for what was going on. We read the story of Mary and Martha. I said I'm not really talking about it that much, but I will address it a bit. We're very familiar with Mary, charging around in the kitchen, busy. No, that was Martha. Busy. Very familiar with Mary, sitting at Jesus' feet. Just step back a bit. Consider Jesus in that story. Jesus has just had a pretty busy time, actually. It wasn't that long ago, maybe just a few days, we don't know really, but that he was preaching to 5,000 people all day and then had to lay on a meal for them in the evening. Busy or what? He's had numerous encounters since then with evil spirits, with sick people that just want more of him. He's just had an encounter with a teacher of the law who's challenged him on all kinds of things, and Jesus has responded with the parable of the Good Samaritan. But there's so much stuff going on. He sent out his disciples in pairs to go and continue his ministry, and then they've come back and they've all unloaded on him. He's had to deal with all of this, and then Martha says, "Hey, Jesus, do you want to come for dinner?" He says, "Martha, can we give it a miss today? I've just been so busy. And I've got another day of it tomorrow, and I'm preparing for this convention that I'm doing in a couple of weeks' time, and it's just all happening. Look, I tell you what, have a chat with James. He looks after my diary, and book in a slot. But I think it's probably going to have to be after Christmas now. Yeah, we'll do something in New Year, okay?" Mary invited him. Jesus went. Not only that, but Jesus didn't say, "Okay, what time will dinner be on the table? I'll turn up then." No, he was there while Martha was still preparing it. Whether Martha thanked him for that, I don't know. But he was there. He had time. Not only that, but he went in and sat down in the lounge, and Mary came to him. I don't know about you, but I think I would have said, "Oh, Mary, I've just been teaching all day. Weren't you there? Can you just be satisfied with that? And look, here's my teaching schedule for the next week, or you can check it on my website. You just come along then. I can't do it now. I just need a break. Oh, Martha, look, forget the meal. Just knock me up a fish sandwich or something. I can keep that going for days." You got that? No, he was there. And he had time. Get it? In John chapter 11, I think it might appear magically on the screen. In John chapter 11, the same Mary and Martha sent a message to Jesus to say, Lord, our brother Lazarus, the one you love, he's ill. And we're worried about him. And rightly so, because we all know that he died. But the amazing thing is, what you see is that when Jesus heard that, he stayed where he was for 2 more days. Why? What was he thinking? There was an urgent need here. And it was the very people that he loved that was giving him that urgent need. He stayed where he was. Why? Well, we've got 2 clues in the passage. One of them is, he says, it is for the glory of God, so that the Son of God may be glorified through it. Jesus' top priority? Glorify God, and for God to glorify him. I think I've sat here and talked about that before as well. You see how Jesus' top priority was his connection with his Father, him abiding in his Father. No, the first thing here, the most important thing here, and what you're going to see through what happens with Lazarus, is that God is glorified. That was his priority. That's what dictated his pace. A bit further down, we then see his next priority when he says to his disciples, for your sake, I'm glad that I was not there. How heartless, how thoughtless. No, see why? So that you may believe. So his next priority was building, strengthening the faith of his disciples. And because of those 2 priorities, when he got the urgent call, he stayed where he was. His priorities dictated his pace. He had such a clear idea of his priorities that he wasn't going to be carried along by the events of the moment to shift from what he knew was important. Get the picture? Check out, haven't got time to look at it now because we're in a hurry, but check out for yourselves the story in Luke chapter 8 from about verse 40 onwards, where an important man called Jairus comes to Jesus with an urgent need. Jesus is being almost pushed along by a crowd to go and sort this out. And he is willingly going, but he stops because there's an unnamed, unclean woman who needs his healing. And, well, he heals her without even stopping, but then he stops because she needs an encounter with him, and his priority is to meet that need. His priority governed his pace. Never mind the fact that there was an important man with a real need and a crowd that was surging along behind him. That's one bit of homework. Luke 19 is another bit of homework. Again, Jesus being carried along by a crowd, this time coming into Jericho. Everybody wanting a bit of the action, everybody wanting a bit of him. And in the middle of all this, he stops by a tree. Because there's a guy up there that nobody likes, nobody wants to be with. And Jesus says, you need me. And I'm going to stop everything and spend time with you. His name was Zacchaeus. Check it out, Luke 19, 1-10. Jesus' pace was dictated, governed, set by his priorities. So he lived life in this way that he always left space for these interruptions. His schedule left all these gaps. I've got to get to Jericho, I've got to do this, I've got to do that, but I'm going to leave a gap because I want interruptions. And interestingly, as you read through the Gospels, you see over and over again, it's those interruptions that really form the bulk of the stories about Jesus. It's the fact that he left space for those things that gives us such a rounded picture of what Jesus is like, how he dealt with those interruptions. How do we deal with interruptions when I'm in a hurry? Not like that. Now, don't think for one moment that Jesus wasn't busy. He was. The Apostle John, at the end of his gospel, when he's kind of summing up, he says, look, I've written all these things because I want you to believe, but you know Jesus did loads of other things as well. So much so that if they were all to be written down, there wouldn't be enough room in the world to contain it all. Right? Do not think for one moment that Jesus had a leisurely life with nothing much going on. His life was packed, generally with other people pressing in on him and wanting stuff. But it never comes across that way, does it? Jesus' life was full of things that mattered. He knew his priorities and his focus was on how to achieve those. Me, when I'm busy, well, generally it's because I've got too much to do and it's all desperately urgent, not necessarily important, but it's urgent. And the only way to keep on top of it is to hurry. Busy. Right. So, we need to slow down. We need to live at Jesus' pace. But you say, yes, you do. You say it was all right for Jesus because he was living in a very different situation. He really had no choice but to go slowly. He couldn't just jump in his car and dash along the Thanet Way to get to his next appointment. He had to walk. And walking by its very nature slows you down and gives you a chance to engage. And he had to do that. There was no choice. And he was never going to get interrupted by one of these awful things. It was never going to happen. True. I agree, yeah. And so you might think, is it really realistic for me to live at Jesus' pace? All right, well, put it the other way round. Imagine, and it would have to be imagining, but imagine Jesus lifted out of first century Palestine and dropped into your life in the 21st century. Okay. What would Jesus do if he were you, here, now, in your life? Would it look like your life? Just imagine Jesus with his clear priorities of glorifying God, reaching out to those around me. They're our priorities, aren't they? We're following Jesus. It's what we want. How does your life match up to that? Jesus says, this is where this whole series started, take my yoke on you, because my yoke is easy. Picture the two oxen ploughing the field together. But picture Jesus. He is the strong one. And he is going slowly. You're yoked to him. I tell you, that yoke is not going to be at all easy if you're trying to go at twice the speed that Jesus is going at. Okay. Move through life at Jesus' pace, leaving the space for the interruptions, having a clear view of what your priorities are, and that yoke will be easy. Try it any other way. It's not going to work. So, that's what slowing is. Why do we need to do it? Next stage of my story. 2 events happened. The first one, chronologically, was that I fell ill. Not too surprising, really. I suppose in one sense, that is one very genuine and real reason why slowing down is a good thing. It makes you ill if you're going too fast. It can lead to anxiety, it can lead to stress, it can lead to burnout, it can lead to a full and complete breakdown. It can have physical, mental, social consequences when you're moving through life too fast. All very good reasons to slow down, but this is not supposed to be a kind of self-help, 7 Secrets of a Highly Successful Man type thing. That's just the reality. There's another much bigger reason to slow down. I'll come to that in a moment. I fell ill I was off work for several weeks. We're trying to remember how long it was. Don't know. It was quite a long time. And it turned out to be the beginning of what was diagnosed as multiple sclerosis. So that was the unwelcome event in my life. Turned out to be the beginning of God's answer to my prayer. But we'll park that. The other thing that happened was, it was great. I was headhunted. It was brilliant. I mean, I went back to work after however many weeks off and promptly got a call from a headhunter to offer me a new job. And I thought, fantastic, that must be the answer. I demanded that God sort it out, and he's given me a new job. My job was burning me out, and now he's given me a new one. I've dodged the bullet because I got over the initial illness, and moved from IBM to BT, who were paying me a lot more, and it was great. Had a third child around about that time, and guess what? Life got busier. And this high-speed living got faster. And I was awful. And this carried on for a while longer. To be honest, I hated my job. I hated most things about my life. And I was always in a hurry, never had time for what was important. I was still doing stuff in church because I had to look good. And I was working like crazy because I had to look good. And I kind of justified this because I thought, by working this hard, I'm providing financial security and stability for my family. Yeah, but they didn't know who I was. And by doing all this stuff in church, I'm showing how much I love God. Yeah, but God didn't know who I was, or I certainly didn't know who he was. And it was all just a kind of a sham. I prayed, yeah, like Martha, I prayed. Lord, here I am again, don't you care? Got another job offer. Looked good. Looked an exciting, dynamic new company. I went and joined this exciting, dynamic new company. I love that job, actually. Year later, telecoms market took a bit of a dive. Dynamic new companies looking around at their staff saying, you've not been here long, you're out. And I was made redundant. Okay. And so God started to truly answer my prayer. The business that I knew well had kind of taken a nosedive, so not much going to happen there. And to be honest, I was tired. So from that point on, I never really had a proper job. I did a variety of part-time jobs, did a bit of teaching, adult education, did a variety of self-employed jobs, and that was the next 15 years. And it was wonderful. Money was hopeless, but that doesn't matter. It was wonderful because I actually got to know my children. I actually found I had a relationship with them. I found that God in his mercy had stopped the slide before it was too late. I found I had a wife. Yeah, she turned out to be pretty good, actually. Yeah, God was now at work answering my prayers. Now, but not everything was sorted. See, what happened was that the physical issues kind of were resolved. The MS had kind of basically parked itself, and now life was taking a better shape. Things were better, but there was still a spiritual issue that the years of rushing and hurry had left. That took longer. Around about 94, the MS kicked back into life, and from that point on and still now, it's just kind of showing a steady progression, and but that's okay. It's all right. The thing is, I know that God is at work through all this. There was real spiritual damage that had been done. My relationship with Jesus was not as it should have been, not by a long way. I was busy. What I'd found, as some wise person said, hurry is the great enemy of the spiritual life. My rushing around had resulted in my life totally shutting out Jesus. Someone else said, if the devil cannot make us bad, he will make us busy. Because busyness and outright sin ultimately have the same effect. They cut off your connection to God. And that's what had happened in my life. Not only that, but it can cut off your connection to other people, those people that you claim to love. It can cut off your connection even to your own soul. And so somebody has called hurry violence on the soul. It's doing me harm. It's doing my relationship with God harm. We need to slow down. No wonder Jesus said, Mary has chosen what is better. Or Mary has chosen the better portion. Yeah, that's what Jesus calls us to. So, you're sitting there now and you're thinking, yeah, but I'm loaded with all this stuff, more than I can handle. Ask yourself, is that from Jesus? So I'm always double booked, triple booked, overbooked. Is that from Jesus? I feel I'm on the edge of burnout and total breakdown. Is that from Jesus? The prophet Isaiah in the Old Testament, which my tablet is now refusing to give me, so hang on a minute, there'll be a short delay. The prophet Isaiah in the Old Testament, I hate technology, don't you? Why did I work for IBM all those years? The prophet Isaiah in the Old Testament, in Isaiah chapter 40, I will get there, honest, says this, and it's God the Father speaking to us, saying, keep talking among yourselves, I'll get there, saying, have you not known? Have you not heard? The Lord is the everlasting God, the creator of the ends of the earth. He does not grow faint or grow weary. His understanding is unsearchable. He gives power to the faint, and to him who has no might, he increases strength. Even youths shall faint and be weary. Yeah. And young men shall fall exhausted, but they who wait for the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint. Or as Jesus said it, you will find rest for your souls in me, but live life at my pace. Jesus wants to produce fruit in our lives. We know what that fruit is because the Bible tells us, Galatians 5 tells us, the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, and so it goes on. What does love look like when you're in a desperate rush to get out of the house and your children are coming and saying, Daddy? What does love look like then? Not good, is it? What does joy look like when you're just desperate to be out of your current situation in a different situation? Not particularly good, is it? What does peace look like when you're always thinking about the next place you've got to be or that next thing you've got to do? All those things that you haven't done. The fruit of the Spirit, what Jesus wants to do in your life, is incompatible with our lives of hurry and rushing. Can't be done. So, I hear you ask, how? How do we do it? Your practice sheet has 14 steps to slowing down. They're very kind of real practical. They won't all work for you, but it's quite an interesting list to go through. I'm going to kind of boil it down a bit more. I'm going to give you 5 things. They all begin with E. So think of it as being ways to find that easy life. See what I did there? That Jesus promises. Okay. Before I go to my first E, let me just finish off my story. Okay. I'm got this rather lovely working life now, this part-time, self-employment, all fantastic. Gradually the work level is reducing as I'm finding it, I'm less and less able to cope with it. And that's good. I'm doing less. I'm slowing down. I'm doing less in the church. I'm finding I can't cope with the things that I used to do. The Martha in me is fading away. Until finally, about 5 years ago, the MS got to a stage where I couldn't really go upstairs at home and I couldn't really do work at all. I couldn't cope with it. We moved house, we came here, and it was like, and when we first came here, some of you may remember, I said, I want to stay invisible. We are tired. What had to happen in my life, and I'm not saying it has to happen in your life, but what had to happen in my life was that the Martha mindset needed to be killed off completely so that Mary could step in. And over the last few years, yes, I've known what it is to sit at Jesus' feet. He's grown that in my life. He's grown that desire in my life. And the great thing is that as he's done that, he has also said, you know something, you can do some of the Martha stuff as well. And so I'm sitting before you now, serving, which is great. But you see, Martha had to be killed off and Mary put in place before Martha could then be reinstated. And Jesus is very good at killing off and then raising from the dead for that family particularly. So allow Martha to be killed off, because what he did for Lazarus, he can do for Martha as well, and bring her back. But once the priorities are in the right order, okay. So that's what happened in my life. My 5 steps to an easy life. First of all, embrace. By which I mean embrace the forced slowing, the things that come into your life that force you to slow down. Now, for me, that happened at a big, big level, and I'm not wishing on you kind of a chronic illness and redundancy and all those things. No, bring it down to a little local level. Those things today that step in your way, in the way of what you want to do and slow you down. Embrace it and recognize it as this could be God. This could be the Holy Spirit saying, hang on a minute, I want a moment with you. Embrace it. A couple of weeks ago, I'd been sharing a coffee in the morning in my new nice slow pace of life with my dear friend Brian. And I've been talking about this very issue because it had just come to me that morning, this idea of embracing the slowed learning. And I was just kind of turning it over in my mind. And we both agreed, yeah, it seems like a good idea. A couple of hours later, I was in the car driving down to Canterbury, had a kind of physio appointment. And I was in fairly good time. It was all okay. Wasn't in a hurry because we try not to hurry. And I was driving down the road, down towards Surrey, and a lorry pulled out of a side turning. And it was a really slow construction type lorry. Pulled out in front and went slow. Okay, I thought, embrace the forced slowing. How does this work then? Does it work? Was it just a clever little line? Normally, natural tendency is keep looking. Is there an opportunity to overtake? Could I over? Maybe. God said, no, you're looking the wrong way. Okay. So I looked that way. And God said, can you see all those colours there? Look at those trees. See that lovely red in those leaves and that beautiful gold. See how they complement each other. God said to me, I was particularly pleased with that. I was really proud of it, producing that this morning. And I thought you might like to see it. If you've been going at your normal pace, you wouldn't have done. And next time you come along here, it probably won't be there. Slow down. Embrace the forced slowing. Let God in. That's step 1. Step 2, elect. By which I mean, there's a bit of a contrived E here, but elect, by which I mean deliberately choose. go out and look for situations that will slow you down. Because once you've started embracing them, you're going to want more of them. Look for the longest queue and join it. Now, you may as well, because be honest, when you try queue hopping and trying to get into what you think is a quicker queue, how many times does it turn out not to be? So you're not very good at it, so don't try it. Join the longest queue. You may get a bonus and it may turn out to be quick, but no. Join it and choose to slow down. And invite God in for an encounter with you right there and then. Don't join the longest queue and promptly get out your phone. Engage in conversation with the next person in the queue. Don't necessarily be thinking, this is a mission opportunity, I've got to share my faith, I've got to put yourself under it. No. It may well be that God is wanting to bless you through a conversation with a complete stranger. And if he brings you into that place, then you're actually far more likely to end up sharing your hope as well anyway. But look first for, how is God wanting to break into my life? How can I give him opportunities to break into my life? Okay. So embrace, elect, nearly at the end, honest. I'm only slightly over time. Engage. Engage fully with the present moment, whatever that moment may hold. It may be that conversation with a stranger in a queue. It may be that particular task that you're having to do. Beware of the myth of multitasking. I had a quote here, but because my tablet's not playing, I can't get to it. Suffice to say, a psychiatrist back in 2007, 2008, I don't know, sometime around there, can't remember his name, he described multitasking as a mythical activity in which a person thinks that they can do more than one task at once just as effectively as if they were doing one at a time. It doesn't work. Honestly, trust me, this isn't just because I'm a man and men can't multitask. Human beings can't multitask. They think they can. But the effect is, if you try to do A and B together, you will do them, okay, but you'll do each one worse and slower than if you first concentrated on A and then concentrated on B. It's a fact. Check it out for yourself. Plenty of stuff. Look on Wikipedia. Look all over the place. Multitasking doesn't work, and it's not good if you're wanting to slow. If you're wanting to engage with what's in front of you. How would multitasking have looked in Jesus' life? Wouldn't have worked, would it? All the time he was totally present with whatever was in front of him. Never was he saying, look, sorry, I've got the dash. Fourthly, evaluate your priorities. This is a tough one. Be honest. Look at those things in your life. What's really important? What really fits in with what you say is important in life? My life 30 years ago didn't reflect what I said were my priorities. What was going on? The fact is, if you can work out what your priorities are, what's really important in your life, have you noticed you can actually always find time for those things that you think are important? So make sure you know what's important, because you're evaluating those things in your life, and then you can make the time for those. And fifthly, and this isn't necessarily a sort of step one, step two, you're kind of doing all these things all the time, but the fifth E is to eliminate those things that eat up the time without producing any real good effects. You know what they are, don't you? You know what they are. Going to be different for different people, but hang on a minute, let's see if I've got any likes. Yeah, I've got a few, that's good. Oh, I wonder what he's saying now. Sorry, what was that? Yeah, okay. Right. You know what they are in your life. I don't know what you're wanting to binge watch next or whatever. There are things that eat up the time. I'm not saying don't do them at all necessarily, but put them in the proper place and don't let them get in the way. So when I'm talking about eliminating, I'm saying don't let them get in the way of what's actually important. Keep reviewing the way you're spending your time. Be harsh on yourself. Do I really need to be spending all that time doing that? And totally against what hurry sickness is, which was about doing more things in less time, turn that over. Do fewer things. Take longer over them. And that way you're giving the Lord Jesus a chance to step into your life and walk alongside you. Isn't that what you want? Your priorities, your schedule is the direct consequence of a series of choices that you have made. You can't necessarily go back and undo those choices, but what you can do is say, how can I make choices from now on that make room, that make time for what's important in my life? Your choices form your habits. Your habits form your character. Do you want to be showing the character of Jesus? Well, adopt the habits of Jesus. Make the choices that Jesus made to adopt his habits and show his character. I'm going to leave the last word. Yes, the last word, you'll be pleased to know. I'm going to leave the last word with the Apostle Paul because he generally knew what he was talking about. And it's what he writes, and I've got to find it on here because... Ephesians chapter 5, Paul says this. Verse 15, look carefully then how you walk. Walk, no, not run. Look carefully how you walk, not as unwise, but as wise, making the best use of time. The King James Version has that as redeeming the time, and I like that because it tunes in with what Andrew was saying earlier. The idea that, things that you've done in the past, the mistakes you've made in the past, it can be redeemed as we walk with Jesus and do life at his pace. Let's pray. Jesus, we just want to stop. We just want to sit at your feet, and we just want to stay sitting at your feet for a bit. Lord, maybe there's something in our heads right now that's saying, need to dash away now, need to do this, need to do that. Lord, just slow us down. Maybe we do need to dash right now. I don't know. But Lord, help us to look for those opportunities in life where we can slow down and you can break in and walk alongside us. Lord, help us to know your easy yoke and your pace of life.